My little thoughts on Magazine Dreams are this movie is really intense. It's good, but it's intense. It's heavy. It reminds me of the style of like Uncut Gems or Iron Claw and Requiem for a Dream and like really heavy, deep movies like those ones. I mean, Uncut Gems isn't like that deep, but it's a little bit deeper. But especially Iron Claw and Requiem for a Dream, those are the two that I would like say this is like a mixture of. So this movie is Jonathan Majors' comeback movie, but I think because of all of his outside personal issues, it's not going to make a lot of money and not a lot of people are going to go see it, which is unfortunate because he does really good in this movie as well. My recommendation is that if you can, separate the actor from the person because the person might make mistakes or do bad things or something like that outside of this film, but that doesn't change the craft of what acting is. And it's a tough thing to do. I get that. Luckily, I have kind of taught myself how to do that. So for me, it's just like I don't sit there and think about what he's doing or he or she is doing personally and let it affect the movie. So like for example, like even Aquaman 2, like I didn't not go see Aquaman 2 because of everything that happened with Amber Heard. So it just wouldn't make sense and it's not fair to everybody else that's involved with the movie either to think that way. Magazine Dreams is about Jonathan Majors' character Killian aspiring to be on the front cover of a magazine for bodybuilders. And I honestly think he's terrific in this role. The physique he put on to do what he does in this movie is absolutely insane. I mean, that fool's been shredded forever, even since Lovecraft Country, which is where I first found him in a little HBO show from like before the pandemic, I think. And from like there to Kang, he's a beast as Kang. And then in Creed 3, he's even bigger there. And then here, he's just ginormous. So I very much wonder how much of the routine that's in the movie that he had to do for the movie is actually what he did in real life as well as part of like training for it. It'd be some pretty interesting knowledge to look up or to seek out. Also, part of the way he acted almost made me feel as if this movie took a lot of inspiration from Whiplash. And what I mean by that is that this character, both these characters isolate themselves from everybody when they try to reach out to somebody that's not a close, like one specific close relative. It doesn't work out, and they're so focused on everything else they're doing for their craft that everybody else gets shut out, and it's almost like they're autistic or something. Like they don't know how to converse. They're just so hyper focused on what they need to do to become the best at what they're doing. In this movie, Killian has a history of violence and aggression, which of course is something that is involved with this actor in real life. So it was hard in that sense. It was kind of hard to be able to separate the two because it's literally what he got in trouble for and how this character is made to be. The character's on nothing but steroids and eating and always comparing themselves to others. So like, of course, the character itself is angry and have lash outs and things like that. So, but it's just very coincidental that it happened to be in line with what's going on in his real life. So like in that sense, it was a little bit difficult to separate the character from the actor, but there's at least a reason for it in the movie. He's just not violent to be violent. Like they actually go into detail about his history of it and what happened to him and like very depressing low things that crafted him into who he has become. And it's also, and the story is mainly about self-control. So there's a moment in the movie where he fails at that self-control, getting his emotions in check and letting him say, like him telling his emotions no, I'm in control. The best way that I like to compare this, even in real life, is like when the Doc Ock's tentacles are ruining his mind, and then at the end he says like, "No, I'm in control." That's how I depict the two similarities. And at the end of the movie, there's another moment where his emotions are in control, and he's about to do something, and then he regains the control. So that's like the self-development character. I mean, and hopefully he's applied some of that to his real life too. One thing I really liked about these movies too, which I kind of talked about earlier, was that they dive deep into what these bodybuilders have to go through on a daily basis. Like they have to be in a surplus of like 3,000 calories. So they're eating ice cream, pancakes, tons of bacon, a full carton of eggs, like so much stuff just for breakfast. And they have to do this 3-4 times a day with protein shakes in there. It's insane. I don't know how the body can even handle it, but they dive deep into that and how like you just have to consume as much energy as you can and not do too much cardio. Otherwise you're going to lose too much weight. Like you need to be big, obviously physically with muscles and stuff like that. But if you do something like cardio or if you are intimate with another person, it burns too many calories. So these bodybuilders in even the movie and in real life, they can't do that. So it just dives deep into the psyche of like how this really fucks with their head. And I thought that was super important to see. If Jonathan Majors didn't have such a controversial life outside of acting, I would say he absolutely deserves to be nominated for something for this movie and also this movie itself. Tragically, I don't think it will be because of everything, but I mean, good for the studio for at least putting it out and letting people like me that wanted to see it and experience it. On its surface, this movie is about bodybuilding, but at its core, to me, is a message of self-redemption, why you should never meet your heroes, and that it's okay to reach out to people when you're having internal struggles, whether that be a struggle of addiction, isolation, too much dedication, which I guess would fall in line with addiction, and things like that. For our 2-hour movie, the time does drag on a little bit. It probably could have been cut short about 10 to 15 minutes, but I feel like they kept that time in there because it takes a long time to see him process his emotions through his head and then display them in a physical form, if that makes sense. So like he has to think about smiling if he's happy, and the time that it takes to think that and then force his muscles in his mouth to try to smile, little things like that take a decent chunk of time. And I feel like if you cut that down, it takes away from his acting, and B, the silent explanation of it, if that makes sense. So if you could put your feelings aside and be able to separate the actor from the character, I would absolutely recommend this movie. Again, it's very heavy, so if you're not in the mood for it, or if you're having a low day or something like that, definitely don't go see this movie then. But if you just want to see a movie that has a good story and good acting from everybody in it, go see it. I thought Jonathan Majors did well in Creed 3 as just like as an isolated person that's kind of been through some stuff and then just wants to kind of better themselves. And here, it's just elevated to the next level. So I think just every project he's in, he's consistently getting better as an actor. And I hope, as long as he doesn't screw up anymore, it continues, because he's a really good actor. If you can't separate the two entities between actor and character, then don't go see this movie. You're already going to go in with a bad taste in your mouth. You're going to see how heavy the movie is and then not like it based off that. Whereas if it was like anybody else in the role, as long as they did a good job acting, you would probably like it. So if you just can't separate the two, just don't even bother watching it, which I hate saying because we need to watch movies. They're experiential events, and watching them in the theater, whether there's one person there or 200 people there, it's an experience that isn't like any other. There's no comparison. The closest comparison would be like a concert, but there's always hundreds to thousands of people at a concert. So it's a little bit different than that. And also that if you have that kind of mindset, it just takes away from all the other good movies that are out there that with people that have done some not so good things. And so maybe there's a person that started young and they have a movie where they're really young, or not really young, but younger, and it's a great movie, but then you only know them as the person of which they've become. So then you're going to let that affect an older movie when they weren't that person before. So like, that's why it's a whole thing. I personally don't like it if you can't learn to separate the two, but that's just me. My rating for this movie is a solid 8.5. Let me know down below if you like this movie and your thoughts on it. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my takes. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Have a great rest of your week.